Alright, so when walking on the Pinecrest Shake, we want to stay to the bottom part of the panel. We want to stay out of the middle and stay away from walking on the side laps. So you can see just walking across like this, staying out of the middle of the panel, and you won't dent it. Layout and fastening for the Pinecrest Shake will go as follows. So when I'm on the bottom row, I'm going to have a 1/2 inch overhang, and my fasteners are going to be 1.5 inches up from the edge. You'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll come back in the back. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the next panel will come on and we'll share those fasteners. Now when I'm laying it out, the Pinecrest Shake has locating points. You're going to see there's one here, it's the double, and then there's also one here on the double. Now they will take one of my edges on my next panel. So you can see here that the waterways all line up. So that's going to be one panel here. And then when I fasten this one, we're going to go down through the front nose. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. And the back shelf will stay the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then once again, we'll have my hip points or locating points right here. And you can see the waterways will go ahead and line up once again. When dealing with our Pinecrest Shake direct to deck, you're going to want to do the following for our standard install. Now the Pinecrest Shake can go left to right or it can go right to left. You're going to have factory edges on everything. Okay? So once we get our drip edge, our gutter riser, chalk our line to achieve a 1/2 inch overhang, and we're going to go ahead and start doing our panels. So first panel on the bottom row, we're going to come down, make sure we're straight with our chalk line. And you can see we're going to come about 1.5 inches to 2 inches up, just a screw length up, and go ahead and fasten that fastener down through the top of the panel. Get one on the left side, and then go ahead and make sure that's straight, and get one on the right side. Now the panel is locked in, I can fill in my fasteners. Okay? Now you can see that I have 4 in the front, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'm going to need the same amount in the back shelf as well. So we're going to come back here and fasten in that back shelf. Now when I'm doing the back shelf ones, make sure I don't over tighten these. We don't want to flatten out this back shelf and flatten out our 90 degree. So now you can see once I'm all done with this one, you're going to have 4 in the front and 4 in the back, and that's going to be for our filled panels or our full panels. Once I get that fastened, you can come back with your next panel, and you can see how these are going to overlap. They're just going to fit into the grooves, so approximately 2-inch overlap. And then since this is the bottom row still, we're going to go ahead and fasten through the top on the bottom, and you get those fasteners in the back as well. Once I get that panel on, I can come back and start my second row. So the second row, you can see I'm going to find my locator points. Okay? Each panel is going to have 2 location points, one there and one on this side as well. Now it's very important to hit these because you can see once I find my locator points, I put one of my ends of the panel into that locator point, and then it's going to make all of my waterways on the back shelf and front shelf line up, as you can see here. Okay, those have to line up to fit correctly. So then I go ahead and just overlap those. And now here, from the second row up, we're going to go ahead and put the fastener through the front nose on an angle to get that screw back into the deck. So once again, one on the left, make sure this is nice and tight up here. One on the right, now that panel is locked in. Now I can go ahead and fill in the rest of my fasteners. Once again, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 on the front nose. Now I'm going to need that same 4 in the back, just like we did on the bottom. Make sure we don't over tighten those. And then once I get those fasteners all in, I'm going to find those locating points once again. Like I said, each panel is going to have 2, and it's going to be those doubles that you can see there. And we take our next panel and we find where one of our ends is going to fit into that locating point. You can see how tight that will fit, and then we'll go ahead and fasten just like we did on row 2 through the front nose. Now when we're all said and done, the bottom row, since we did go through the top, we're going to take our caulking and go ahead and caulk those fasteners, and then take the chip from our touch-up kit and throw the chip into that caulking so it will blend into the panel. Alright, so when we're doing a Pinecrest Shake directed deck layout, we'll do the following steps. First, we're going to go ahead and put our eave drip edge down, wrap my corners, fasten that every 16 inches. Then we're going to come back with a code approved underlayment coming over the top of that drip edge. Then we'll go ahead and take our rake drip edge, wrap those corners, and fasten those every 16 inches as well. And then we're going to go ahead and come up and mark 14 inches. The Pinecrest Shake has a 14.5-inch exposure. We need a 1/2 inch overhang, so that's why we go 14 inches and chalk that line. Then we're going to come back with our rake channel. Now when I'm doing my rake channel, you'll see here it's got a locator, drip locator, so it's just going to come on the drip edge just like so. Well, one thing we also want to do with our rake channel is give it a squeeze and make sure it's nice and tight before we put it on. So then we'll come back, make sure I have approximately 1 inch overhang, and then we'll fasten with our washer and screws every 16 inches on the outside channel. Then we're going to go ahead and come back with our gutter riser, and we can just butt that with the rake channel and we'll go flush with my drip edge. Fasten every 16 inches. Alright, so when we get our fill panels on and we're ready to put our rake panels on, we're going to find that same profile in the shake panel, and we're going to measure into our rake channel. Minus a 1/4 inch, just so you don't fight installing that. We're going to measure from our eave to our ridge and write these all down in order. And then we're going to take it over to our cutting station. So we'll have our list here. Find that same profile that we measured from on the roof. Go ahead and mark where that line's going to be. Create a straight line. And then we can go ahead and take it over to our cutter. When we get done cutting that, make sure I just reform my panel. And then once I get all my cuts done, I'll have a stack all in order from the eave to the ridge. We can hand that up on the roof and start installing our rake pieces. Alright, once we've done our filled panels and we're ready to put our rake in, after you're done measuring and cutting your rakes, we'll go ahead and bring our pile that we put in order up to the roof from the eave to the ridge. Go ahead and grab that first panel, place it into the channel, and then we'll just fasten as normal, getting our fasteners in the bottom and the top of the panel. Go ahead and grab your next panel out of your pile and fasten as normal. Make sure not to put any fasteners in the channel. Keep them all on the outside. Then we'll just keep going, grab our next panel, go ahead and place those into that channel, and fasten as normal all the way up your rake. Alright, so when we're setting up our two-piece valley, we'll do the following steps. So option one, after I get my drip edge on, go ahead and bring my two-piece valley together, and then I can just bring this down, make sure my entire width is overhanging a minimum 1 inch, and I can go ahead and notch out that drip edge. Fasten with my washer screws every 2 feet on the outside. No fasteners in here. Okay? And then we can go ahead and just install panels as normal. The other option is going to be using our flat stock to make a valley extension. So you can just see putting a fold on this guy, water stop on either side. Now I can go ahead and put this on. If I'm going to use this, go ahead and grab your caulk gun. Go ahead and throw a couple lines of caulking on the extension, and then we'll go ahead and slide our two-piece into place. And then we can go ahead and install our valley pan with our washer screws every 2 feet. And then we can come back, bring our gutter riser, and we'll bring that flush with our drip edge and bring it flush with our valley metal for our extension pan. Now in treat areas, we recommend using our M-seal inside of our J-pan. That way debris will not get inside the system and clog it up. So we're just going to bring that inside that J-pan on either side, the entire length of my valley. And then we'll be ready for our panels. Alright, after we get all our filled panels on and we're ready to measure our valley cuts, we're going to measure from the eave to the ridge and write those down in order. So when we're measuring these, we want to measure from a profile on the shake, and then we'll go ahead and measure into that two-piece valley. Go ahead and measure the bottom of the panel and also the top of the panel. And we'll write those down on our list. And we'll write down from the eave to the ridge. Once we get all those measured and written down, we're going to go ahead and take our list to our cutting station. Find that same profile that we measured from on the roof, and go ahead and come back, read my measurements, and go ahead and mark those. Then we can come back with a straight edge, mark that cut line, take it to our cutter. We're going to go ahead and cut the valley cut. And we also want to dog ear the top of the panel when we're going into the valley. So we'll cut that one just like so. Also remember, sometimes when you're cutting those, they'll flatten out the panel, so just make sure we reshape those panels. Then once I get all my cuts done, I'm going to have a pile, and it'll be in order from my eave to my ridge. I'll go ahead and hand that pile up and start installing. Alright, once we've measured and cut our panels, we'll go ahead and bring our pile. That's going to be in order from the eave to the ridge, up to the roof. Take that first panel, slide that into our two-piece valley, and then we'll install this as normal. Getting our fasteners in our front nose and our back shelf. Make sure we don't put any fasteners over our valley pan. Keep all the fasteners on the outside of the valley. So then once we get that first one on, we'll just go ahead and take the next panel from our pile, slide those into the two-piece valley, and fasten as normal. Now, if we do need to put a fastener in over the valley pan to hold these together, we use our 3/4 inch stitch screw to stitch those in together. Just like that. And then we'll just continue with our pile. Going up the roof until we've completed our valley. We're ready to finish off our 2-piece valley. We're going to want to either take a butyl tape, or you can take a high temp ice and water like our tile seal and go ahead and seal that joint. And then we'll come back with our valley cover, place it on top of that one. If I have put a fold in my valley cover, just make sure I overhang it so I don't block the water flow. And then we're just going to take our 3/4 inch stitch screws and we're going to stitch that valley cover into the 2-piece valley on either side. And then just go on each nose of the panel on either side as I'm going up. Alright, after we get our fill panels on, we're ready to do some hip cuts. We're going to go ahead and find the profile in the panel. We don't want to measure from the edge, but the profile. Then we're going to measure the bottom of that panel all the way to that hip line. We want to make sure they're tight to the hip line. And then also the top. So we're going to write down our measurements. We're going to start at the eave and work our way up and have all our measurements written down. Then we're going to go ahead and take that to our cutting station. Then we can find that same profile that we measured from on the roof. Then go ahead and mark those panels. We can create a straight edge. And then we'll take it to our cutter. Now we want to reshape these because the cutter can flatten those a little bit, so just reshape those when we're done cutting. And then when we're all done, we'll have a stack of panels from the eave to the ridge, and we'll take that up on the roof and install them. Alright, after we've got our filled panels on, we're ready to do our hip. Go ahead and measure those out. Go ahead and cut them. Keep them in order. Bring your pile up on the roof and start from the eave and you work your way to the ridge. And we'll just fasten these as normal, getting our fasteners in our bottom and our top. And then we just grab our next panel off of our pile and fasten as normal. Once again, getting those fasteners in the bottom and the top. And then we'll just continue going up the roof, grabbing our pile until our hip is done. Alright, so our ridge panel cuts, we'll come up and just measure to our ridge line. Go ahead and write those down, and then once we get that list, we'll take it over to our cutting station. And here we'll go ahead and mark that measurement. 2 different lines, create a straight line, then we'll take it to our cutter. That panel will be ready to install on the ridge. Alright, when it's time to install our ridge panels, you got a couple different options. One option is I can go ahead and measure this, put a bend on it. You can see I got one panel even to my ridge line. The next one comes right over the top and folds over that guy, and go ahead and fasten as normal. So that's option. You got another option where I'm just going to go ahead and just cut the panel straight off, even with my ridge line. Just install that as normal and fast. Now, depending on where my coursing lines up, you might have to put a spacer behind this panel to make it stay the same plane as the rest of the roof. You can do a 1x4. You can even take the scrap from where I cut my panel and go ahead and place that back there and use that as a spacer to keep the same plane going down the roof. And then just go ahead and fasten down through the top into the decking. And then we're going to go ahead and follow up with our barrier foam. Comes right over the top like this. And then we come back with our cottage cap on top. Alright, so when we're going to do a ridge vent with our cottage cap, we'll do the following steps. Cut out your decking, get that attic ventilating, and then we're going to go ahead and use our Ridge Master vent. So we're going to make sure this is to the pitch of the roof, and then go ahead and mark the line on either side. And then we're going to go ahead and add, we can do like a butyl tape, we can do our M-Seal expandable foam down here. You can even go ahead and throw a caulk line across there as well. We just need something in between the panel and the ridge vent. So once we get that done on either side, we can go ahead and set this. Make sure to do that pitch to match the pitch of the roof. Then go ahead and fasten those on either side. Make sure that you're getting our 2.5-inch screws for this application. Make sure that pitch is staying good. And we'll fasten each hole going across the ridge vent. And once we get that all ready to go, we'll be ready to go with our caps. And our caps are going to fit right over the ridge. And you can see we'll just continue our same fastening as we normally do. Fastening on either side, 1.5 inches up into the decking. Just like that. When we're ready to put our caps on our hips, we'll do the following steps. So first, make sure we chalk a line. Make sure we're keeping everything nice and straight. And our hip starter, we're going to go ahead and take a full piece, come down here, and mark my angles of my corner. Then we're going to come around, you can see I'm going to have 3 lines. We'll have a cut line, a bend line, and a second bend line. So once we get done cutting and bending those, it will create a 3D cap, as you can see here. So with that 3D cap, I was going to go ahead and hook that 1/2-inch overhang we have on our panels. So once we're ready with that one, we'll go ahead and come back with our barrier foam. And we're going to just set that on top and sandwich that between our panel and our cottage cap. So first panel, go ahead and just hook that one. Then we're going to come back following our chalk line. Go ahead and fasten that 1.5 inches up from the edges down into the decking. One on either side, both 1.5 inches up. Then we'll just continue up with our caps. fastening on either side, 1.5 inches up. Make sure we don't over tighten or under tighten our fasteners. Alright, so when we get to a hip and ridge intersection with our cottage cap, do the following steps. Find my hip line here, go ahead and notch that one, install as normal, fasten inside, 1.5 inches up. Then we're going to go ahead and take our caulking, go ahead and caulk along this one. Then we'll find my miter line and go ahead and notch that cap so it fits nice and tight, just like so. And then we'll fasten that one as well. Then we're going to go ahead and caulk our ends here. Then we can come back with our first ridge piece and go ahead and notch it and fold that down. So it fits nice and tight here. And then we'll fasten on either side. Just like so. Alright, so when we get to a ridge with 2 rakes, you got a couple options. You'll see some guys go ahead and just fold down a cap like so and fit over the top and cut the miter to match your miter line of your fascia. That's one option. Another option is just kind of come over the top of it. So you'll have to cut your miter out of your rake channels to make sure it's nice and straight. Apply my barrier foam and then come over the top, just overhanging it like so. Then I can go ahead and use my stitch screws. Put a couple fasteners down through the rake channel. Hold that in place. And then we can continue doing our ridge panels. Alright, so when we get ready to do our cottage cap on our ridge, cut our panels tight to the ridge line, grab my barrier foam, place that on top of the panels, and then we're going to go ahead and bring our cap up, and then we're going to fasten 1.5 inches in from the edge on either side. And you can just see the next cap, put it right on top, 1.5 inches on either side. Go ahead and keep fastening along the ridge line. Direct to deck with our shake. Do the following steps. So first we're going to find our measurements with our short course up against our head wall. Fold that up 2 inches and then find my corner. Go ahead and flatten this one out and wrap that corner like so. Make sure my panel is at least 4 inches past my corner of my chimney or skylight. Then we'll take our caulking. Go ahead and throw your caulking down across the panel. And then we'll come back with our first panel that we've notched around that chimney or skylight. And then we're going to install that and fasten that as normal. Bringing our fastener down through top there and through the top of the panel as well. Then we're going to come back with our head sidewall metal. We'll find our corners, go ahead and wrap those, extend it 4 inches past the outside corner. And we're going to lay this in a bed of caulking. So we'll go ahead and take our caulking, put caulk across there, and lay this into the caulking like so. Then we'll go ahead and fasten this into my head wall. we're ready to come back with our sidewall underpan. So sidewall underpan, we got a couple options. The minimum, we got to get at least a 1/2 inch past my corner. That way all my water gets out. Now with the coursing, depending on where the coursing ends up, sometimes you can have a lot of bare metal hanging out here. So to avoid that bare metal hanging out, you can do what we call an extension. And just take a piece of our flat stock and create an extension like this. So now all you're going to see is the stone coat. So either way it works. What we're going to do is go ahead and throw caulking down this guy. And then you can wrap this corner, and we'll show you another option as well. But you can wrap this corner, create a water stop everywhere above that panel course. Alright, then we can go ahead and fasten that in. And then we can do our sidewall underpan back here where it's not going to be visible. So now I can go ahead and wrap my back corners, as you can see here. Place that inside the extension, and then on my sidewall underpan we're going to be using our washered screws, and we're only going to be fastening on the outside of that trough. Fasteners there. Now we can go ahead and come back with the rest of our panels. You can see they're just going to be cut. Make sure they're reformed after we cut them. And install those as normal. Putting fasteners in the front and in the back. Then when we get to the top of our chimney or skylight, we're just going to notch that panel out once again. We'll go ahead and install that. Like normal, getting our fasteners in the front and the back once again. Alright, so once we've gotten our bottom flashing on and all our panels on, we can finish it off by using our head sidewall metal. Go ahead and find those corners, extend this past so we get a nice clean edge coming across, and then go ahead and fasten into the sidewall. Then once we get both sides all complete, we're going to go ahead and come back with our flat stock and make a saddle pan. So we're just going to get our measurement from our back of our chimney or skylight to the back edge of the panel and go ahead and bend that accordingly. So we're going to go ahead and want to take our caulk across there, and then extend this past a good 4 inches past my edge. Go ahead and lay that down in the caulking, and we can fasten back in the head wall, and then we'll fasten in the top of our bend as well. Once we get this all fastened, we'll go ahead and take our M-sill on the back shelf there. Since it's got a flat back and doesn't have the profile of our panel, and we'll go ahead and throw that M-sill down over the top. And now I'm ready for my next panel to come over the top. Now, if we need to throw an additional counter flashing over the top of this, we do have our 3.5 inch fascia that I can throw over the top, like so. Or we can come back with our 5V once again and flash that as needed. Or we can bring our siding back over the top of our head sidewall metal. Now you can see once it's all done, alright, if you're going to use one of our easy vents for venting, we'll go ahead and cut the decking out. 29 by 5 inches. We also recommend putting a screen over that hole. That way we don't get any insects into the attic. Go ahead and fasten that. Then we'll come back with our easy vent. You can see it's just a panel that we put a vent on top of it and stone coated it. It's going to install just like a normal panel. So we'll go ahead and put this one on. Fasten through the front nose. And we'll also go ahead and fasten through the top just like we do with the panel. Once we get all my fasteners across the top, we're going to go ahead and come back with our M-seal. Since we have that flat vent on there, we want to go ahead and put this on in between our top panel. And we're going to go ahead and take our top panel, sandwich that M-seal in between the two, and then behind the vent only, we're going to go ahead and fasten down through the top. Just like so. Make sure you caulk and chip these screws that go down through the top, just like our bottom row. Alright, so when we're doing a pipe on our shake, we can do the sandwich method. So what you're going to do is you're going to first find your hole where your pipe is. Go ahead and cut around that pipe. Then take our caulking. Go ahead and put caulking around that pipe. Then bring my pipe jack over the top into that caulking. Then we can come back with either a full panel or a partial panel as long as it covers my pipe jack. And then we're going to go ahead and cut that out, and we're going to sandwich the pipe jack into that panel. Just like so. Then we'll come back and just fasten the panels as normal. Then we'll go ahead and caulk around that pipe. And then use our touch-up kit to go ahead and put the sprinkles on that caulking. And then you can finish it off with our pipe sleeve, just like so. Now we're going to show using our split course method or standard method when we're flashing a pipe on a Pinecrest shake direct to deck. So first we'll locate our pipe, go ahead and cut our base panel around that pipe. Take your caulking, do a bead of caulking below the pipe. And we're going to go ahead and flatten this out slightly. And then we're going to take our pipe jack and anything behind the coursing, we're going to go ahead and do a water stop. So we're going to fold it over on itself. That way no wind-driven rain gets underneath the pipes. So then we'll go ahead and place this into the caulking. And then we can go ahead and fasten that down through the top into that caulking. And then we're going to go ahead and come back with our pipe or our panel, and we're going to go ahead and cut that pipe jack out as tight as possible. And then we're going to go ahead and place that panel and make sure it's fitting nice and tight. Then we can come back and fasten the panels with our normal fastening pattern. Then once we get all our fastening done, we'll come back with our caulk. and our touch-up kit. We'll go ahead and come around and caulk around that pipe. And then we'll come back with our granules and put them in that caulking. And then we can finish it off using our pipe sleeve. The pipe sleeve is just going to fit over the top here, and I can trim this to whatever pitch the roof is. And then we can go ahead and fasten back into the pipe here, and then you'll be all set to go. Alright, so when we're doing a stepped eave, we're going to introduce a short course. We want all of our short courses down at the eave. So once I get my panels laid out to where I want them to be, I'll go ahead and come back with my rake channel, notch around that panel, install that rake channel, make sure I got my overhang, make sure I got my gutter riser in, and then make sure we're going to have a 1/2 inch overhang on my panels as well. So once we get that figured out, we can start cutting our panels and laying them out. So we'll go ahead and just notch those just like so. You can see we'll just come down through the bottom row once again and fasten those as normal. Go ahead and finish that bottom row. Make sure everything's fitting good. We'll get those fasteners in our bottom row and our top rows as well, just like so. Then we'll have to figure out where our line's going to be. We're either going to line up. We want them tight here, keep that short course down at the eave. So once we figure out where that line is going to be, we'll come back with our foam closure. Go ahead and install that across that line. And come back, put that panel in place. And fasten down through the top on that short course. Finish that row out. Fastening down through the top on those ones. And then when we come up here, we'll just fasten as normal down through the front nose. And then just remember, anything down through the top, we gotta come back with our touch-up kit and our caulking. So caulk all those, and then put that touch-up kit on each screw. Alright, so when we need to add a solar mount, we'll go ahead and take our direct-to-deck solar mount. We're gonna find a rafter, and then we're gonna go ahead and pre-drill our holes. After we pre-drill our holes, bring your caulking back, fill where those holes are going to be. We'll come back with our lag bolts and fasten this mount to the decking. Then we'll go ahead, place our panel, and fasten as normal. Alright, so when you're doing a dormer valley with our 2-piece valley, you can go ahead and use our flat stock to create a valley extension. So you can see I'm just going to have a water stop on either side, and then we can go ahead and cut our angle out as desired. So once we get that all cut out to where we want, we're going to go ahead and form our panel, and then bring our caulking, and go ahead and put a bead of caulk in there. And then we'll place that into the caulking, just like so. Then we're going to go ahead and take our caulking one more time, put a bead of caulking on my valley extension, and then we'll come back with our 2-piece valley. We'll go ahead and slide that in. Then we can come back with our washer screw. Go ahead and fasten our valley pan. And then we'll come back with our panels and slide those into our two-piece, just like so. We'll fasten those as normal, and then we'll finish it off with our valley extension. When we're all done with our aspect, we can come back with our finishing touches. And we can use our touch-up kit. We can cover up blemishes, cuts. And like on our bottom row, we're going to go ahead and caulk our bottom row screws that go down through the top, and then use our granules on top of that. So we'll go ahead and bring that caulking around, smooth it out the best you can.